Your YouTube feed is crap. Stop wasting your time watching bot-boosted shills and self-appointed gurus cloying for your attention. Instead, join the Gosslings interview live stream and podcast. The Gosslings, a dark-lit digital speakeasy of free thinkers. A super chat of radical truth-seeking wizards who eat trolls for second breakfast. Topics that'll make your mama's hair stand on end. Ideas that'll make your pastor's knees knock. Guests that will illuminate the hidden chambers of your mind. And interviews that strike down the darkness. Welcome to the Gosslings.
Greetings, everyone.
Hello, everybody.
I'm Jonathan.
I am Nick.
And we are the Gosslings.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, this is going to be a really fun one. One that we have been looking forward to for probably at least, like, ever since the day that we got it figured out that we could do this. We were like pretty stoked about it. So it's been like at least probably like a month or two.
Yeah,
I think we've had this one on the docket.
Just over a month. Yeah.
So yeah, if you were ever interested in the occult or witchcraft or anything that is on the dark side of the supernatural and how someone can come out of that, this is going to be an awesome interview for you. But before we do that, we got to get through our front of house work.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's do that real quick. Number one, of course. Actually, before we do all of our front of house stuff, we got to do our toast.
Oh, let's do the toast.
Let's do the toast.
Right.
Let me turn the ticker on.
We were gonna go old school at Nick's suggestion for this, by the way, today. That's what threw me. We were gonna
do swords and bucklers or battle axes, and then we're like, let's just do rock paper scissors.
Yeah, let's do rock paper scissors. Yeah,
let's see who goes first.
Yeah.
Here we go.
All right,
ready to go.
1, 2, 3, shoot.
Dadgummit.
Yeah.
So I do it.
Dealer. Well, whoever wins
you
gets
choose.
dealer's
All right.
choice.
Man, we haven't done that in a long time.
So yes, Nick gets it.
All right, everyone. Grab your drinking vessels. Take up the broken sword of your father
And strike down the darkness.
Cheers.
Cheers. I say, Nick, what are we drinking from today? Same thing we drink from every day.
Yes, we are drinking from the Kothon Spartan mug by Cherico Pottery, ChericoPottery.com. Every mug is handcrafted. He's an unofficial sponsor of the show. This is a replica of what the Spartans traveled and drank out of.
Yeah.
Designed by Joel at Cherico Pottery along with Stephen Pressfield.
Yep. Author of Gates of Fire.
Yep. And you got to get you one because they are amazing.
Yeah, they are excellent. And then
it's the only thing I've never put in the dishwasher.
Really?
I can't bring myself to do it.
I can't taste the difference. Yeah.
You can't. Tastes like Tide Pods.
Stay Spartan strong with the Kothon mug from Cherico Pottery. And then our second sponsor is none other than Giordani Jovanovic Hair Care Products.
Yes, indeed. Mike Fisher sponsored the show. Giordani Jovanovic. Amazing products. Jonathan's been using them. You can tell by how beautiful his beard is.
Look at how Leonidian my beard is.
Oh man, so
I mean, like I'm a dead ringer. When I hold this in my hands, you can't tell I'm not Gerard Butler.
That's true.
Except I don't quite have like the side mouth, the Scottish side mouth thing going that Gerard Butler has. You know, where every time you talk, it's like over here. You know, that's still my Nick Nolte impression. I'll work on the.
You work
accent.
on that.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's like if you combine Nick Nolte and Sean Connery.
Well, regarding the product, just like I said last week, if you want the beard squatch,
yes,
or the lion's mane,
yes,
you can stop breaking the 10th commandment and get yourself some Giordani Jovanovic.
That's right.
All right.
Be real. What is their tagline is great. It's real products for real men. But I also say be as sexy as you are deadly with GiordaniJovanovic.com.
Right. Yeah, I like that.
GiordaniJovanovic.com.
Yeah,
because it's John Wick's real name. So give 007 a run for his money. Be the Keanu Reeves of your county.
Yeah, trademark pending.
Yeah, trademark pending. Yeah,
2022. And finally, if you have not yet, please take up the broken sword of your finger and strike down the subscribe button and smack the bell. We appreciate that, as always.
Yes.
And now that the obligatories are behind us. Oh my goodness, look at that chat. We've got a lot of people watching, man. Awesome.
Yeah,
Jay
Jay
Reese
Reese
is
Bradley
on.
is here.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Danny Dennis, Joey Payne, Very good. Hi,
Nice.
that's my mom.
What's
Hey,
up,
Mom.
Joey?
What's up? Roseanne's
Joey's gonna
watching.
love this one.
Oh yeah, and
Abonarer?
Abonar
Is that how I pronounce it?
Abanare.
Abonarer.
Abanare. Okay, yeah, I think that's good. Maybe some others that I missed. I hope not. Let's bring on Shannon.
Yeah.
Shannon, we're going to bring you on right now. Shannon has an amazing story. As you guys probably know, she came from a very dark past. She had been in the occult.
Yeah.
God has rescued her, and we're going to hear about her story now that she's on this side of the cross.
Yeah, that's right.
Ladies and gentlemen, Shannon. Hold on, let me get this.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Wow, cool.
I'm doing great.
Yeah, nice shirt.
Oh,
Pretty sharp.
have you heard of this podcast? It's every striking down the darkness, one
That's
interview at a
so
time.
Awesome.
I wonder. That's awesome. I wonder where people could get a shirt like that. Probably by becoming a patron or just going to that website right there.
I owe you a book, Shannon, because I think I once upon a time said that the first person to buy one of our shirts gets a free copy.
He absolutely
of
said
Heavenly
that.
Realms.
He absolutely said that.
So,
I have it on
Yeah.
audiobook, so a physical copy would be great.
oh yeah,
So
yeah.
I like to read and listen at the same time.
It
Oh, that's
smells. It'll
smart.
smell like beard oil.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. It will now.
You have a glorious beard. Glorious.
Don't worry, I won't rub my beard on the book. I'll take the. I don't. You know.
Maybe you should.
Yeah.
You can-
maybe.
you
A couple of beard hairs just fall in
Yeah.
there. Page 43.
Yeah.
Something.
Caress
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. It's some DNA that you can use to like clone and make an army.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
an army of fat, lazy, hairy, sensitive artists
They know how to do that.
who eat all the hot pockets. You know. No, we do. We really appreciate
This is
you, like,
fantastic.
actually not just being here, but
Yeah.
also the shirt is awesome. Like,
Thank
you have
you.
no idea, like, how long we've had the shirts
Thank
and how long, like, someone
I-
actually like wears one. It's awesome.
The logo is awesome. Like I love the coloring and
Thank you.
the whole palette. I love it.
Cool. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Can't
Nick
type,
did a good
can't
job.
hack a typewriter.
You can't hack a typewriter.
That's right.
That's right.
KGB
Absolutely.
approved. Yeah.
That's right. I would just like to point out, you're speaking the truth. I never once asked any specific person, hey, you should get a shirt before you come on the live stream.
Yeah.
Shannon
Yeah.
bought the shirt and she sent me a picture and said, can't wait to be on the live stream wearing this.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I like made our
you're
week.
amazing. This is
Yeah.
all. Yeah, it was huge. So thank
Yeah.
you for that.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, let's start with an overview, just kind of your background and an overview of where you were and how you got to where you are now.
So I was raised Christian, and I like a pretty standard American upbringing. And then my parents got divorced, and that sort of like it set up a chain of events. And I was through high school. High school is like when I started getting into the occult and the occult, Wiccanism, and then like Satanism as well. And of course, I was like the rebellious teenager,
Yep.
and I think it was. I partied through college, was continuing with my hedonistic ways, and then right towards the end of my 20s is when I started to calm down, and I met my husband, and I had been doing some very hard drugs at that time, and he helped to get me into rehab.
Okay.
And that's really where things started to change for me.
Okay.
And then a couple of years into rehab is when God opened my eyes to like the insanity that I had been partaking in. And he used Ben Shapiro of all people to
Really?
to open my eyes. And like that's like the scales falling away from the eyes moment. It came from Shapiro, which
Okay.
is funny, it's ironic, but
Yeah.
and yeah, so I got married. I had my son. I have two sons now, and
Awesome.
we are living life.
That's awesome.
That's the
That is-
broad overview.
Okay. Okay.
Were you born and raised in the South?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm from Georgia. My parents were Yankees. My dad was born in Japan on a base,
Okay.
but he is definitely not Japanese, obviously.
Okay.
They both moved around a lot. So sometimes I have a southern accent, but like usually not. I just sound pretty standard
I detect
Midwestern.
nothing. I detect
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I actually, it shows because I would have had you pegged for maybe somewhere like Ohio, maybe all the way out as far as like Washington State. So
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
you have one of those chameleon accents, that-
Non-regional
Yeah.
dialect.
I'll
the
take
lack
it.
of an accent.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, very nice. So I'd be interested to know when you were. I mean, there's a lot of things that we want to cover, but I think parents that have teenagers and they worry about this sort of thing, or maybe they're not even aware of it. They don't even know they're supposed to be worried about this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, what were some of the influences as a teenager? What were some of the influences that attracted you and kind of drew you into the occult?
So the two biggest things were Charmed and Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Mm.
So like, and the Laura K. Hamilton books. She
Yep.
does like the Anita Blake like vampire type books,
Mhm.
and then Interview with the Vampire, Anne Rice, and all of her books. That's like what I kind of started to get into as like a young like kid, you know, and then like through my teenage years, and I didn't know that that the occult existed. Like I didn't know it was a real thing. I thought that was all like pretend, like make believe. And then I was at Borders, which is a bookstore
Yeah.
pre
Mhm.
Barnes and Noble, but I was at Borders and walking around in like the young adult section, and they're like in the self-help section there was like a teen witch book,
Mm.
and it was in the nonfiction, and I was like, what is this? And like picked it up, and like everything changed from there. So
Interesting.
I know exactly the section you're talking about. I was on the opening crew of the Borders that was in Cool Springs, and
You're in Franklin.
yeah, and it was awesome working there, but I noticed that too, like in that back right hand, and our store is the back right hand corner where, you know, it bled right out of the nonfiction section into like all the tarot cards
Yeah.
and, you know, all of
New
the
Age.
witchcraft
Yeah.
and the new age stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, very strategically placed
Now,
next
did-
to the genre section too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, did you? So Buffy the Vampire Slayer, that was like before the Harry Potter craze.
Yeah, that's right.
Harry Potter exploded
After
into the
the
world.
craft, but
Yeah.
before Harry Potter.
So when Harry Potter comes onto the scene, you know, where were you at that time, and
Yeah.
like what are there any warnings
Uh,
there? What was your opinion of all that?
So no, because J.K. Rowling was pretty open about being Christian, and so like I never associated Harry. It wasn't until I was an adult where Harry Potter, like she clearly used, like she must have researched Jung and alchemy, and like she must have done some kind of research because there are a lot of parallels.
Mhm.
But I was in like 7th grade when I picked up my first Harry Potter book.
Okay.
So like I had been, and I didn't really like to read before that. And then Harry Potter is like what got me into reading. And I enjoyed that
Yeah.
book. And I was like, oh, reading is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, I mean, obviously it'd be great to be like a wizard going to Hogwarts, but
Mhm.
like that, it wasn't with like Buffy and with Charmed. It has less of like an innocent kind of like
Mhm.
make believe feel to it. It's more of like it's darker and sexier, and you know.
Yeah, because Harry Potter primarily takes place at Hogwarts in like
Yeah.
almost this like pocket dimension,
Yeah.
you know, that's away from the real world. Whereas, you know, Buffy angel, and then and then the craft before all that takes place in the real world, and it could be you or your neighbor or and it interacts with the real world. So yeah, that makes sense. There's not as much of a dividing line.
Yeah. And like I don't feel like now as like a saved person, like, and having like gone through everything that I've gone through, I have like Harry Potter books over here, but like I don't feel like convicted reading them. Like I don't feel like, oh, this is wrong. Like it doesn't, because there's nothing in it really that, aside from like the alchemical kind of parallels, aside from like the names of spells and stuff, it's not really anything like the occult or like Wicca.
Yeah.
Well, that carries some weight because you lived it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that makes me feel better because my kids have read Harry Potter.
Yeah. Like I never used like a wand and like waved it and like did Expelliarmus or
Forgeticus.
So
Yeah.
But when you first got into witchcraft, you saw that book and you're like, what is this? And you started reading. Was that a journey you were going on alone at the time, or did you get connected to other people that were also into that, or how did things develop?
At first I was by myself. My mom was like not against it. So my mom was kind of with me, and like especially through like the tarot journey. But I didn't really meet other people who were into it also until high school. And then I obviously did find friends, and we sort of formed like a coven, but we didn't all share the same beliefs. It was more like a study group.
Okay.
But we did do some like spell type stuff together.
Interesting.
And you said you got into Wicca or Wiccanism first, and then moved into Satanism, which would have been probably, I guess, the more hardcore, because there is like the white magic, black magic kind of, Hegelian or kind of a Hegelian dialect.
Yeah, it's like
on there.
Sorry, I don't know how to mute that. It's like the Luciferian, like Lightbringer side, and then it's like the darker, like
Satan side.
Yeah, exactly. But they're the same thing. It's just two sides of the same coin. Like
so I'm sorry.
like,
go ahead.
Like it comes. At the time I didn't know that it was the same thing. Is what I'm saying. Like you believe like, oh, I'm into white magic, and it's like I don't hurt anybody, do without will. Anyway, and like you're just doing it for yourself, and like you're trying to be like a light, a positive influence on the world. And then the other side is considered like more selfish, and like you're twisting things to your will, but they are both like the same. What am I looking for? It comes from the same place. It's the same power, same source.
Yeah.
It's a deception.
You said the line, "Do what thou wilt," and isn't that like "Do what thou
shall be the whole"?
It's the whole of the law.
Isn't that in like the Satanic Bible or something?
Yes, I think so. Yeah,
it's kind of like their main principle.
Yeah, and like Aleister Crowley, like that whole group.
So when you were going through all of that, did you become aware of Aleister Crowley at that time? Did you like read any of his writings or study any of his life at all?
A little bit. I did. I read so that came later, really. Like as an adult, I started to like get into like the history of it, and like Helena Blavatsky and her influence on I guess like the occult and then Aleister Crowley and all of that. But that was more later. Like at the beginning, it was like Wicca, and then that transitioned into like reading the Satanic Bible and the Necronomicon and that kind of stuff. So it was a progression.
So at first it sounds like it was exciting. It was new. You were meeting new people. All this stuff.
Learning new skills.
Yeah, learning new skills. Yeah, kind of doing all these things in secret as a group. At what point did it get kind of weird and scary?
So I guess. So I had so when I was still into Wicca, I had done a spell where like anyway, I lit a candle and I left this candle burning in my room, and I was an idiot and I left it there and I went to school. And when I came back from school, I had burned my room down, and like the whole house was like filled with smoke, and there was
Oh,
smoke
wow.
damage and like all of yeah. So that happened, but the spell worked, which and it went it went like overboard, and like I still feel some guilt to this day because I was affecting somebody else, I was trying to affect somebody else's will, like with this, and like it worked like even years later. So it
Still,
Wow.
was
yeah.
there a delayed reaction to it working, or did it work and
Yes.
it carried? Okay.
Yeah, there's a delayed. It didn't seem to work at first, and then
Yeah.
it did work. And like so I had a crush on this person, and I had wanted them to like me. And it turned into like an obsession kind of thing.
Mhm.
And like even years later, like I found out that like this person was still like obsessing, and like I don't know,
Wow.
I feel terrible about it. But so that was like the first thing where it was like, oh, like what, it felt off, like weird,
Yeah.
like it kind of like dark, like
Mhm.
anyway.
Yeah. It always gets. It's like it's like the genie in a bottle thing. You
Yeah.
can have your wish, but
Yeah.
there's always like a price. It's a Faustian bargain, and
Mhm.
every
Yeah.
time, But that's the allure, is that like no one really takes it seriously enough on the consequences side.
Yeah.
How soon? So after you, how soon do the dots connect for you between the incident with your room and then the spell taking
Working?
effect, and then you connecting the dots, like, and kind of a follow up to that. When you did connect the dots, did you feel like you were exhilarated and wanted to go deeper, or did it kind of frighten you and you kind of pulled back a little?
So I think it took probably like 3 to 6 months for me to realize like, oh, like maybe this worked, and like that, like it's a real thing. Like I wasn't actually expecting it to really work. Like it was more like a fun kind of like, oh, people, I don't, a part of me felt like it was fake, like, oh, this is like, you're a teenager, and like you're like, this is like people being silly, or wanting to impress each other or whatever. But yeah, like 3 to 6 months it took for me to realize that it worked. And at first I was like, oh, this is cool, and then I regretted it because I didn't like the person anymore.
The feelings pass, but the
Yeah.
curse remains.
People change
Yes.
a lot as they go through their teen years.
Yes. Yeah.
One day I'm a goth, and then
Yes.
I'm a candy kid, and then
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's done.
It's kind of like,
But-
well, I mean, it's just kind of like a believer. How many times have we had, a concern or a need, and we pray,
Mhm.
and then we forget that we prayed, and God answers the prayer,
Yep.
and we don't connect the dots. Like,
Yeah.
how many of us actually go, oh yeah, I remember praying about that, and then
Mhm.
I should pray more.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very, very uncommon, it seems like, to pray and have your prayer answered, and realize that and remember that you actually pray for that specific thing.
Yeah.
That's why you write them down. Keep a prayer journal.
Do you keep a prayer
And-
journal?
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
It's a-
Very cool.
And then I'll have like answered prayers. So I use Post-its. So I'll write
Mhm.
down my prayers on Post-its, and then I'll like move them to the back of the journal.
Oh,
So-
that's smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. Kira OC just commented and say, praise reports are good. That's true. That's
Yeah,
true.
same
When
thing.
you gather with people and you're sharing how God answered your prayer. And I think if you anticipate that, like, I know I'm going to be with a group of people, they're going to be taking prayer requests and sharing praise
Mhm.
reports. You start thinking, oh, what has God done for me?
Yeah.
Since last time we met. Oh yeah, I remember praying about this thing. Very cool. Very cool.
What would you say? So even though we have never dabbled in this, we believe it's real. You have experienced it. You know it's real. What would you say to somebody who is a skeptic or just thinks, oh, it's all in your head, or it's coincidence, or it's just, the, a law of attraction or whatever,
Well, so I mean, I think like standing on this side of the cross, like law of attraction it's the same thing. It's like the same
Yeah.
vein. Like it's the same powers, I guess, or there's some. I mean, I used to think that it was like the law of the universe or whatever. But okay, so what would I say to a skeptic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was a skeptic too, like before it actually started working. Like I just was attracted to it. But I mean, it doesn't really bother me when people don't believe in it, like, cuz I guess I've seen it, and I've seen some really spooky things where it's like there was obviously something happening there, but I don't know. I don't know what I would say to a skeptic.
I definitely want to follow up on that.
Yeah.
But before we do, J. Reese Bradley had mentioned people with Ouija boards. And we had, I think, briefly, sort of talked about that. We mentioned Ouija boards a few times across several interviews. But I kind of wanted to ask you, in regards to things like Ouija boards, what are some things about the occult that no one ever talks about or that you want people to know?
Hmm.
Some things that maybe like slip past the radar, or people think is innocuous, but it's like, no, this is like a real thing you might want to worry about.
Well, so the thing that always that terrified me was, so you think it's cool to like interact with either like ghosts or like you're interacting with like tarot cards or whatever, but the energy, the being that's on the other side of that hates you. They hate us, hate humans, and like it might feel good in the moment because you're like, oh wow, this is so neat, but like that energy or the being is they want bad for us. Like they want to harm us or to cause us like ultimately to lead us to our destruction.
Yeah.
So, like it can be fun to like lay out a tarot reading and like have it be like spookily accurate, and then but you have to keep in mind that like that whatever is making that happen is against humanity. So
Yeah.
When did you first realize that?
So after I started reading the Bible, but I knew that there were negative entities like demons and things, and then I thought that there were like positive entities like spirit guides and like like angel type beings, but so I knew that those were there, but I thought there was like a yin and a yang, where like there were good ones and bad ones, and but
Not the
yeah,
case.
like
Yeah.
Do you believe that some people, when they pass away, they linger, they don't go to hell or heaven, they kind of linger around and stay? Or do you have a pretty what do you think about that?
So I think that, so I've had friends where like when their grandmother died, like the scent of the grandmother, he didn't know that his grandmother was dying, and his grandmother died and he smelled her, and then his mom told him that she had died. And like, so I feel like in passing, like as like the transition's happening, maybe like and there are people where like they'll know, or like my mom woke up in the middle of the night and like her mother was standing over her, but her mother lives in Pennsylvania and we're in Georgia, and she died like a few days later, And so
Wow.
it's like I feel like in the transitional moment they might be able to travel or their spirits reach out or whatever.
Yeah.
But like in terms of like ghosts, I don't know. I don't believe I've experienced some like ghosts and like I think they're demons.
Yes.
Like
Yeah. There are no friendly ghosts.
yeah.
There are familiar. I've heard that there are familiar spirits,
Mhm.
Yeah.
meaning you think you're familiar with them, you might recognize them, but it's not
Mhm.
Yeah.
what you think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder. That's really interesting. And we had a similar story when my wife's grandmother passed away. Our son was a year old, and that night, when she passed, our son woke up about one. I think it was about 1 a.m. Woke up.
How old was he?
About a year old.
Okay,
Yeah. And it was almost like and it was apparently at the same moment that she had passed away, kind of like she was saying goodbye to him,
Yeah.
on her way. That kind of, that's what we like to believe anyway.
Yeah.
I hope that's the case. You
Yeah.
know,
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, remind me again how you guys found out about that. Was it through the baby monitor or?
No, we heard him crying, and then my wife and her mom had been talking about the experience because her mom was with her grandmother when she
Okay.
passed, so she knew exactly what time it was when she passed.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Wow.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So there's some corroboration there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Spooky.
interesting. Yeah.
It's neat.
Speaking of spooky,
Yeah.
what are some of you mentioned like some pretty scary, spooky things that you have seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us about any of those you want to.
So my house was haunted. Like when growing up, my house was haunted, and I would see like a black feather or like feathers like in the corner. Like if you like see it and you turn and look and nothing's there, and we would wake up in the middle of the night, and like my dad was a firefighter, so he would be gone for like 24 hours or 48 hours, and he'd be on like back at home for 2 days and at work for 2 days. And one night my mom and I were sleeping in the bed, and there was like a shadow like standing over us, and I thought it was my dad, and I was like, oh hey dad, and like turned over and like went back to sleep again, and like he was at work still. Or
Wow.
yeah, and I'd see like wake up in the middle of the night and there'd be like a man like standing in the doorway. And like as a kid you think like, oh, that's Santa Claus, or like, oh, it's the Easter Bunny.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I like remember back at like there was totally like a weird like a being. It kind of looked like you remember on old TVs where it'd have like the snow when it wouldn't be connected to anything. It would look kind of like that, where it was like
Weird.
not connecting. I don't know. It was
Yeah.
freaky. So
Weird.
that was the house we grew up in. Like the faucets would turn on sometimes, and like.
Oh
But
yeah.
my mom thought it was a ghost. She always said that we were the house was built on like an Indian burial ground, which of course it wasn't. But that's what she would say.
They're all built on Indian burial grounds.
Yeah.
What was the movie that made the Pet Cemetery? Is that the one
Yeah,
that made
Pet
it popular?
Cemetery.
Poltergeist.
And
Poltergeist is
yeah,
the one
Poltergeist.
where, yeah.
Yeah, and there was a rumor like
And Pet Cemetery too.
yeah, that the house that you grew up in, there was a house right down the street, and it was the one house in the neighborhood that could not keep residents. They would move in, and a year later they'd move out.
Close to where Justin Johnson lived.
Right?
Yeah,
close to where Justin lived, and it was like the only house in this little center area of the subdivision was just a park.
Yeah,
it's just a park area, and the houses were built around it. But there was one house built on the actual park, and the reason they couldn't build any other houses in the park because it was allegedly an Indian burial ground, and this house that was built on that park could not keep residents.
Yeah,
and the
neighborhood
urban,
rumor,
the urban lore,
the suburban legend,
with the suburban legend was that it was haunted.
Yeah,
and it was a brand new house.
Yeah, it was a brand new subdivision. So,
and I don't know about that Indian burial ground stuff, but it is interesting that back then I never heard about burial mounds.
Right.
and what they were actually for. And we
Yeah.
didn't see any burial mounds, but when you have a burial ground, it makes one wonder.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
What
if
do
that's
you?
the case.
How do you mean?
So burial mounds, there are Indian burial mounds all over the world.
Yeah.
And the burial mounds are oftentimes, and there's plenty in North America. Most of them are like in the kind of Midwest. There's hundreds of them in just Iowa. There's some here in Tennessee, but I don't know what you'd call them. Not pre-native people. There are the Native American tribes, but there was a group of people here before him, before them, and those are like the Mississippian, for example. They're attributed to having built these mounds, and there were these cultures that would bury their dead under these mounds, and allegedly, if you're into the Nephilim, folklore, and really I think it's more than folklore, but there were giants buried in these mounds.
Yep.
Super huge skeletons have been found in these burial mounds. They're all over the country. Of course, you can't excavate them anymore, but there's record after record after record after record of
that all get gobbled up by the Smithsonian.
Yeah, when Americans began to expand out west, they'd come across these burial mounds. They would uncover these large, oversized, skeletons. And it was really, really strange. And the native tribes that had lived in the areas with these mounds said, we didn't build those. Those were here before we got here.
Yeah.
So it saw these ancient cultures that had some sort of purpose for these mounds. And what's really interesting, even the one here in Tennessee, Pinson Mound, there are several mounds in this large area, and they are arranged to align with solstices, and equinoxes, and so forth.
Yeah.
So they had some pretty interesting depth of knowledge back then, and they used these. I think they used them ritualistically.
Yeah. Well, and who knows, Nephilim, if there are Nephilim buried there, then disembodied spirits, there's a lot of, Gary Wayne talks about it, and Derek Gilbert does too, that like and Clarence Larkin, that the disembodied spirits are the ghosts of the Nephilim, the souls.
That is a theory.
Yeah. And then the Bible doesn't say how many Nephilim there were. So, when you have these ancient burial mounds, or even just Native American mounds, not even the giant mounds like what Kim talking about, the ones in Ohio, or just, they're all over the place. But even if you just have a normal Native American burial mound, why was that place chosen? So,
It's so cool.
Yeah, it's all very mysterious. Mysterious. And these burial mounds, some of them are big. I mean, the Pinson Mound is like 70 feet high. I mean, it's huge.
Oh, wow.
And that's just about an hour from us. It's not that far.
Yeah.
But it reminds me of the high places that are mentioned in the scriptures. There they had, in Israel, they have a topography with mountains and valleys and so forth. It was easy to find high places or build high places. But in this plain, in this area, you have to build a high place.
Yeah.
You have to build a high place that's close to, where you live, where you hunt.
Yeah.
They had to construct these things. And I think there were ritual sacrifices that probably took place on these. Me personally, I think there were sacrifices that take place on these mounds.
Of course. Yeah. The blood's where the energy, the magic, the power is. Lifeblood.
Yep, the life is in the blood.
Yep.
So when you transitioned over from Wiccanism to Satanism, what was that digression like? Like, what did that kind of look like? Why did you transition into Satanism? And then what were some noteworthy things or rituals or whatever that you may have participated in or seen within Satanism that you look back on now and are like, man, it's kind of wild, if anything?
So I think music had a lot to do with me venturing down the darker path. I was very into like death metal and black metal and all of those, like the corpse paint kind of groups. And I was always kind of attracted to like darker things, like the darker side of life. And I had a huge, well, anyway, so the girl that I had a crush on was very into like Satanism. And so like we, I started going down that path.
Yeah, sure.
And
Sure.
rituals, really, it was like we never did anything like super theatrical, like that's like in the movies where like you pour salt on the ground and everybody's like wearing robes. It was more like sigils, where you want you create a sigil and you want like something to happen, like you want to get this job, or you want your comic book series to take off. So you would make a sigil and have like a ritual around that. And so that was primarily the type of like magic that I was into. And yeah, I mean, that stuff works. Like, it's kind of, I don't know.
It's scary. I mean, it's scary to think about that.
Well, for anybody, and that's kind of, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it kind of was a follow-up question that I had, is for anybody who, might be watching this, because I have those people in my life, who don't see anything wrong with this, and, maybe they don't have the right perspective on it. They don't have a Christian perspective on it.
Yeah.
So they just see it as power acquisition, and just utilizing the resources of the latent resources of the universe, to take advantage and make their lives better. For anybody who might be watching who would be interested in that sort of thing, what would you say to them to possibly dissuade them from it?
So you're bending, you're attempting to bend the world to your will, right?
Yeah.
And like you can't see the consequences of what you're choosing to do, and like you're interacting with forces that do not have your best interests in mind. So you might get what you want in like the short term, but the consequences of that, like you can't see it. And like I really so I had done a ritual to get a new car, for example. And we got the exact car that we had wanted, right? But in creating that sigil, I was in a car accident with my baby at that time, like my son. We were in a car accident, and this is when he was like very little. And the car that my insurance company gave me as like a rental while we were looking for a new vehicle was the exact van that like I had been wanting. Like it was the same color, the same make. It was like a Chrysler Town and Country, which is like it had like TVs in it and everything. Like that's what I wanted. And that exact car is the one that I didn't have any say in it. The car rental place, that's the one they gave me.
Wow.
And then we found one on sale, like the exact same vehicle. And like but the way that happened, that went about, was like that we were in a car accident. Like I got injured, my son could have died. Like you don't have the perspective to see like how things are going to play out. And like well, if you believe in the Bible, and if you believe in God, like God has your best interests in mind, and like he works things out for those who believe in him. Things work out for the best, like for and when you submit to his will, like amazing things will happen. Like not in the way that you think it's going to happen, because you're like in the middle of it, and like you can't see like 10 steps ahead like God can. Like it's submitting to his will it seems counterintuitive, especially like if you're into the occult, like you are somebody who wants to inflict your will like on reality. But once you learn how to submit to God, and it that's where like life is. That's where the meaning of life is. That's where like I was miserable all like that whole time. I hated myself. Like I thought I loved myself, but I was very unhappy in that way of life. And like I can tell you, like once you're on the other side, it's like you see like the chains, like you're shackled to your own will, which
Yeah.
it's like it's a weird thing. Like you're enslaved to your own will when you don't have Christ. Like it's
such a cosmic irony because, you know, in you making yourself your own god,
Yeah.
you become a slave or an addict to
Yep.
that sort of thing. And like, and then when you turn your life over to Christ and you become a Christian, you know, you kind of like can let go and stop, you know, stressing to force things to happen. Yeah. It's just, it's ironic, you know.
What was your during that time? What was your attitude towards God? What was your perspective on who God was? Did you think he was real? Did you love? Did you hate him? Were you ambivalent? Like, what was your attitude towards God during those years?
I hated God. I hated Christians. Like even like the thought of going in a church stressed me out. Like I was repulsed by Christianity. It was like just absolutely repulsed. And I think now looking back, like maybe I was being oppressed, like or something spiritual was happening, but I was very much against Christianity. And I think there's some things that happened, like after my parents got divorced, like my dad became very angry, and he really dove into Christianity in like a authoritarian type way, and I think he could see the path that I was heading down, and he's a military guy, and that's kind of like how he approached it. So like I was a young kid and I wouldn't want to go to church, and I'd like lock myself in the bathroom, and he'd be like yelling and like pounding on the door like, "You're going to church."
Yeah.
And,
When you're a hammer, everything's a nail. That's how you
yes.
solve problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I was very resistant to it. So
Sure.
But yeah, I did not want Christianity to be the answer.
Why
I tried
is that?
everything.
Like what was your thought process at that time? Why did you hate God and Christians so much?
I thought that it was unenlightened and small-minded and uneducated and judgmental and like you know, so I was like a goth kid and like a metalhead, and like you would see people that are like dressed normally, but to me, like it was like those people think that they're so all high and mighty, like goody two shoes. Like I'm gonna go out back and smoke a cigarette and like, you know, listen to Metallica, and like it.
Feeling very targeted right now, actually.
No, that was me though. That was me. Like I totally, yeah. So like that was like my perception of like Christians. And I didn't think like there are no Christians like me. Like they don't know what life's all about. If heaven is hanging out and like knitting and listening to like Enya, then I don't want any part of that.
Playing a harp on a cloud.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. They do sell heaven as pretty boring, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of times, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think now it's starting to change because people like us are Christians now, and like it's not, and people are reading the Bible more, and like the Bible doesn't paint heaven in that way, like that, and there's all kinds of awesome supernatural stuff in the Bible, like that part I was not taught as a kid, so I had no idea that
you never heard it from the pulpit. You never heard it from the pulpit. Yeah.
All that,
or
like,
the classroom, you know.
Yeah.
And why is that? Why is that? I don't mean any disrespect to anybody listening that's ever preached right now, but why will you not talk about the supernatural realities of Scripture? Why will they not do that? What is your opinion on that?
I blame materialism and like the Enlightenment period, like where so science, everything was explained through materialistic views, like the atom was the pinnacle of creation, essentially, and people wanted, I think pastors wanted the church to not be laughed at and judged. So, and they wanted to attract Christians and like the hooky kind of like spiritual stuff, like, that's not real because materialism can't explain it. So it's the, the religion of science is what I think drove it out.
Yeah, I agree. I think pastors and preachers don't want to be laughed at.
Yeah.
They don't want to be ridiculed. I'm pretty sure the red letters say, "Blessed are you," and people ridicule you, revile you for my namesake.
Yeah.
Amen.
Pretty sure that's what the man himself said.
Yep.
The God man himself said.
So, and Jerry's made a very funny comment that says, "And now you totally knit."
Yeah, you knit now. That's cool.
Yeah. I crochet.
Crochet.
So
There you go.
I do a Wednesday night women's group on Isaiah, and I teach them how to crochet.
That is so. That's cool.
Lord
That's
works
cool.
in mysterious ways.
Yes, he does. Like I've told them before, like the only way I'm sitting here with you is like God's glory, the grace, by the grace of God, like because like God is real. Like me sitting here in this room with you crocheting is proof that God is real.
Yeah.
Like,
That's awesome.
And you're like, oh, man, dang it.
Yeah.
I guess heaven may not be so bad after all if it's just a bunch of knitting.
yeah. Yes, I love crocheting.
So I know. Let's touch on. There are a couple things that I know that you really wanted to.
Yeah, there are 3 things that we want to get to for sure.
Yeah.
I want to actually start here.
Okay.
I want to talk about the events that led to your conversion to Christ.
Yeah.
I know you said Ben Shapiro was a part of that. Like, what was going on in the world at that time? What was going on in your mind?
Yeah.
And what was the catalyst to get you to open yourself to God's influence?
Okay. So this is pre-pandemic. I was pregnant. No, I had just given birth to my son. So I had a lot of time on my hands.
Okay.
Before that, I had been bartending and waitressing. And I was suddenly a stay-at-home mom. So I started to get into Jungian philosophy.
Okay.
And like looking into like shadow work and trying to become I forget the word that he uses.
Ubermensch?
No, that's Nietzsche.
That's Nietzsche.
Oh, that's right. That's Nietzsche. That's right. I'm getting my German philosophers mixed
That's
up.
Superman.
Yeah.
I like Nietzsche too, but it basically where like you become a fulfilled human being, like a whole person. So like, is it ascension? That's going to bother me. But anyway, so I started to get into Jungian philosophy and I wanted to do shadow work.
What's that? What is shadow work?
So shadow work is, so you have like your persona and like your normal, just how you are every day and the things that you're interested in and that you like, but there is a shadow part to yourself and where everything that you reject about yourself, you put into your shadow and you like crush it down and it's basically like everything that you consider like bad or wrong is what you put in your shadow.
Okay.
So shadow work involves going into your shadow and trying to, I guess, assimilate those things that you have pushed down in your past and assimilate them into your being so that you're a whole person. And a good way to tell what's been pushed into your shadow is in other people, whatever makes you mad and other people, like if whatever people do that annoys you is usually what's in your shadow. And you can project your shadow onto people, and like you can and like everybody does this, where like you project your issues onto somebody else. Like that's your shadow, essentially. Like
Yeah.
the things that are bothering you and other people are your shadow. So I don't know, I just Jung and like his like dream interpretations and like all of like that kind of stuff I was super interested in, obviously, because I'm
Yeah.
like a gothy nerd chick.
Right.
So it so one of the things at that time that really bothered me and other people were Christians and then conservatives. And yeah, that was, and there was a guy, and like I was doing like an outpatient rehab thing for my previous drug use, right? So there was a guy that was in recovery with me who was a Christian and a conservative, and we would get into arguments all the time. Like, and I'm pretty blunt, and like I will just say whatever I'm thinking to people, and so like we would just butt heads constantly. And I was like, okay, what is like the one thing? Obviously, that guy, like that's immediately what I imagined my shadow to be, was this person, like the angry red hat Trump guy was my shadow. So I like went on like this deep journey to try and like understand and like try to sympathize with conservatives, like just to like make myself like a wholer person. And you know, like when the 2016 election, obviously Trump won, and like I was shocked because I voted for Hillary. I was, you know, a good liberal. Like
We
a
were
good-
too, and we voted for Trump.
Yeah.
We were shocked too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, so there's no way like half the country are evil, bigoted racists.
Right.
So that also played into me trying to like understand things from like a conservative perspective. So I started listening to like the Daily Wire. I was like, who are the most popular conservative media hosts? And like at that time I was like so entrenched in my bubble that like even just searching on Google for like conservative news, like nothing, the only thing that ever came up was Fox News, and then there was absolutely nothing. Like they like trying to find conservative media at that time was like I don't know. Anyway, the algorithms. But so I started listening to Ben Shapiro and Andrew Klavan. Those were like the two main ones that I was into, and they eventually I came to. All right, so we had talked about this earlier. So I feel like there's like a mass brainwashing going on, like just having come from like the liberal, like far left persuasion. When I first started listening to the Daily Wire, like I would get so upset, like visceral reactions from anything they would say that was like negative about Hillary Clinton or Obama. Like I loved those people. Like they were my icons, you know, like my idols or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it took like listening multiple times to like the same episode or anyway for it to like click and for me to like actually be able to hear,
like to get
what they
past
were
your own
saying.
noise, right?
Right, because
Yeah.
all I would hear was them saying negative things about Clinton or Obama, and then everything else would just be like gone. So it yeah, so eventually I started hearing it, and like something weird happened, and then I started to see things from like a conservative's perspective, and I was like, what's going on here? So that was my like the long road out of liberalism, which was like the first step towards Christianity. Not that all Christians are conservatives, but I had to like get past that hurdle. Yeah, so with Christianity, so so obviously most people are fans of the Joe Rogan podcast.
Right.
And his first interview with Ben Shapiro, he is talking. I was listening to this podcast, and he is talking to Shapiro and asking him, like, why do you believe in God? Like, why? Like, what's the bit? Like, what's your story, dude? And Shapiro says, and this is what God used. I don't know why, but he basically said that so humanity is placed in a logical universe, and we have the ability to understand that universe. We have the unique ability to understand that the universe because we are the image of God. And like that
That's
just,
good.
it was like the scales fell away from my eyes, and it was like, the universe, what? Like God's real? Like, and God, like, I don't know why he used that. So like it was, but so I was like, okay, I have to read the Bible. I have to read the Old Testament. I was like, Christianity still isn't the answer. Like, no way. Christians suck. Like it's, so maybe Judaism is the answer for me. So I started to look into Judaism, and like so I got the Hebrew Bible.
That's cool.
And yeah, and I started to teach myself Hebrew.
That's
And I
awesome.
was reading the Old Testament. I get really into things. So, but I kept having this issue while I was reading the Old Testament, where Christ would appear in the Old Testament, especially in Isaiah. But like there is like the logos of God, like is Christ, right? Like that's what
Physically
when I was little,
manifesting
right?
in the Old
Exactly.
Testament. Yep.
Yeah. So, so I had first looked into Judaism, and then once like Jesus kept appearing in the Old Testament, and then like there are like fulfilled prophecies that are in Isaiah and throughout the Bible, but Isaiah specifically was really what turned me.
Yeah.
And like
Wow.
the Dead Sea Scrolls, and like they have proven that it's like physically proven that Isaiah, the scroll Isaiah, existed like 400 years at least before Christ. And like I didn't know at that time that Christ was a historical figure either. Like I thought that there was no proof. Like he's just like this made up guy that Christian men were using to control women and to control the world. And like that was my perception of it. So so I looked online. I was like, did Jesus exist? And I was like, proof for Jesus. And like, there is more proof that he existed than like most of the other historical figures that we take for granted. Like, like there are extra biblical, like things that aren't in the Bible mention Christ like contemporarily, like existing and like dying on the cross. So like that actually happened.
Yeah.
And like that was like a big thing for me.
That's
so
cool.
Yeah, and the Isaiah scrolls, and then Christ like actually having existed. And so that was my conversion, really. But that was like the logical conversion. Like the emotional conversion happened later. But yeah, so I went from, and because I was all into Jung, I got into, he says that Christianity is the answer for the future, but it's Catholicism. Catholicism is the answer according to Jung, because of the Mary figure. So there's Christ and there's Mary, and they're like the dualism, so he thinks that there has to be like a balance between male and female for like the psyche. So so I got into Catholicism.
Okay.
Poor Young. Lost me there.
I
So
think
close.
I think it's really cool how you got in, get the Hebrew Bible. You said, well, I'm going to, I don't want any of that Christianity stuff, but I'm going to at least read the Old Testament. And you start reading the Old Testament. You really got into Isaiah, which Isaiah is known as the fifth gospel. They call it the fifth gospel.
Oh, really? I haven't heard that.
Yeah, because there are so many prophecies about Christ, talking about who he is. And that led you to, basically, the slippery slope. You start reading the Bible.
And like this, Isaiah is what people use for like Jewish people who like you're you want to convert or you're trying to like give the gospel to, showing them Isaiah is a big turning point for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think that's super
I've heard that about
materialism.
Daniel too. Daniel's prophecy of the 69 weeks
Yeah.
between the Jews building the wall in Jerusalem again and 470 years later when the Messiah comes into Jerusalem, as the prophecy goes, and exactly 470 years later, almost to the day, Jesus rides into Jerusalem on the back of a donkey, fulfilling all these prophecies. And that's converted a lot of Jews, actually, to Christianity.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm into that.
So talk about you mentioned the emotional conversion that happened later on. Are you comfortable talking about that? Would you mind?
Yes. So I logically, like, I knew that Christianity was the answer, and but I wasn't going to like church at this time. And then so I hadn't asked for forgiveness, right? So like I knew, like I could sit down and like read about Christianity and or argue with somebody about it, like my husband, and try. All right, let me step back. So the emotional conversion happened when I started to pray. Finally, like prayer didn't come naturally to me because I had never prayed, and then I started to feel convicted about my sins and like the things that I had done. Like, so it took a while for me to start grieving for like the person that I used to be, and like feeling like that. I don't know if it's humility or the word that I'm looking for, but so
remorse.
Remorse.
Okay.
So
okay. Yeah.
it took a while for me to feel like remorse and for it to like really like hit me. And like I remember my son was maybe like, he was less than a year old, and I remember just it finally like hit like a wave, like everything that I had done in my past, and like all of like the guilt that I'd been carrying, and like this like self-hatred for the things that for the way I had been. And like I was like sobbing on the floor and like begging God to like forgive me and to like to just take it. Like I was trying to give it to him. And there wasn't like anything like visibly like spiritual that happened, but like there was like this weight that was like lifted off of me in that. And like after that is when really like the Holy Spirit began moving in me, although I guess it was moving in me before that too. But that's when I started to notice like my feelings change and like my desires start to change, and like the fruit of the Spirit essentially.
That's awesome.
So yeah.
Wow. Very cool. And so that was your response. Did you become Catholic for a while? Like, did you start going to Catholic church, or did you? So talk about that.
Yeah. So I had started to obsessively watch like Catholic priests and like teach classes and talk about like Catholicism and like the doctrines and everything. And I started to go to the RICA, I think it's RICA, RICA or ICA.
Yeah, RICA.
Yeah. I started to go to those classes and
RCIA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. RCIA.
I got my acronyms wrong. Yeah, the Rite of Catholic Initiation for Adults, I believe is what it stands for.
Yeah. And the teacher, the people that were teaching that course used to be pagans also, and like used to be in the occult. And like I think that there's like this natural attraction for pagans to Catholicism.
Absolutely.
Sorry for all my Catholic friends out there, but
yeah, is that just because they're more liturgical, more ritualistic, or
yes, and all the saints and like Mary, like Mary's a big deal, and like having I used to be a lesbian, so like
it's gynocentric. There's pageantry. There's an appropriation of pagan deities and rituals that get reincorporated with a Christian veneer on them. So it's like a perfect transitionary religion.
Exactly.
Yeah,
which
makes
is
perfect sense.
which is how, when Rome converted to Catholicism, they had to get the people to switch somehow. So
Yep. Pax
Yep.
Romana, baby.
Yep.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't stay long there. I went to maybe like 3 or 4 classes, and then God moved me away from there, and I was like, this is not, having the idea of having to confess your sins before you can partake in communion.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to, or else something bad will happen. Like it's like, what? Like this is Christ. Christ meets you where you are. Like you don't have to confess to some guy in like a necktie. Like what does that have to do
Yeah.
with Jesus?
Right.
So
That's Jesus's
Yeah.
job in a way, because you can't go before the Father or before the white throne with any blemish, but that's
Yeah.
sort of what the blood of Christ is for.
right.
Exactly
It's
right.
the coal in Isaiah where it like touches your
Yeah.
lips, like
Yep.
and purifies you. That's the blood of
Yeah.
Christ. Like that's
Yeah,
so it's
the whole point.
That's
yes.
awesome. That's
Exactly.
I want to ask, well, I know we want to get to one. We're saving one question that we all three really want to talk about, but I wanted to ask, why do you think, and it kind of ties into what we were just talking about with Catholicism, why do you think lesbianism and witchcraft are tied together? Like, did you consider yourself a lesbian and then that sort of led to witchcraft, or did you get into witchcraft first and then started to gear towards lesbianism? Did they kind of yin yang around each other? Like, talk about that.
Good question.
It was more of like a yin yang. It was like sort of woven together.
Yeah.
So I had, since I was young, have loved women. I think my parents getting divorced and like being raised by a strong woman, and then some other things happening. Anyway, like psychologically, like I preferred women.
Mhm.
And like we're beautiful, we're like fun to talk to as like a woman, and like not that men aren't beautiful, but just obviously we're very different.
We're not. We need
You're
these
beautiful in your
products.
own
We
way.
need these products just to get by.
Yes. The
Jordani
manscaping.
Jovanovic.
So but women, like we bring life into this world. Like
Yep.
women are awesome. So
Yep.
I had a preference for women, and then as like a teenager, there's hormones going around everywhere, and then I discovered Wicca, and there was like this. I feel like it's like a natural attraction towards it, as somebody who preferred women to like they're all the goddesses, and it's very like woman centric, like it's
Mhm.
and like they portray history in a way where it's like the man always pushing the woman down, and like
The oppressor.
Mhm.
we're oppressed by men, and like women have to stand together and like fight the man, and like there's a lot of that in Wicca, and like they're all the goddesses are the main attraction, versus like
Gotcha.
the Sky Father, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah, invisible guy daddy.
Yeah.
I asked that because I've known so many godless women who all fall into two things: some form of witchcraft, and then lesbianism.
Mhm.
Like it's almost like you can almost set your watch by it.
It's so
Mhm.
compatible. It's almost irresistible for some.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that goes all the way back to Genesis, like
Mhm.
with Eve and the apple and the serpent, and like you can be
exactly
like
what I was about
God.
to say. Yep.
Yeah, like you can have God's will. Like you can be God if
Yeah.
you eat
Yeah.
from this apple. And I think that there is like a natural, like instinctual pull for women to be like that. I don't know. Most of the women I've met anyway, unless
Right.
they're, anyway, our generation.
Right.
Our generation of women, yes. I can't speak for the older generations. I'm not sure. I don't know what's going on there.
Jerry Spradley has an excellent comment. There's some pretty ugly women out there.
Yeah.
I'm a dude. I
Cheers.
didn't want to say it,
Yeah, I'll say it.
but there,
Yeah.
it is true. It is
Yeah.
true, and there are some pretty, Adonis-like men out there.
There's some very pretty boys.
Yeah, there are some
You
pretty
know?
boys.
Yeah. God love them.
Yeah.
Did your oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say for women it's different. Well, for me, I'm not a very like sexual person. Like I don't like lust after people, and like so like visually, like the way somebody looks, it doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't really matter to me, and I think
Yeah.
that's normal for women. Like
It
we can
absolutely
look
is.
past like the whatever you look like as
Thank
long
you,
as you're not
Lord.
like as long as you're not like an a-hole, like,
Yeah.
Right.
and even then we might still like you.
Yeah, well, you might like them because of that, actually. Yeah, depending on
Yeah,
how
maybe.
pathological your psychology is. Yeah, and
I
yeah,
was in a very abusive relationship with a woman for like 7 years.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
they're not good to me. So,
I've heard a couple of those stories too. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is
It's not
that
something
is.
I don't hear.
I was just about to say that is. I think that's far more common than a lot of people are willing
Yeah.
to admit in this new age that we live in. You know,
Yeah,
where that's such a glorified thing.
the relationship that I was in was very, very toxic. And like I have like my ears gauged,
Mhm.
and they used to be much bigger. And
Mhm.
we got into a fight once, and like she pushed me, and like my ear caught and like ripped, and like there was like a whole mess over here.
Oh man.
So that's why they're so little now. But
Yeah.
yeah, like there were like some physical altercations that happened, and I've never like,
Yeah.
well, I've been married. I've been with my husband for, it'll be 8 years in January. And like nothing like that's ever happened.
Yeah, of course.
Like,
Yeah.
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 Like,
From what I understand from our conversation, you came out of that lesbianism before you came to Christ.
Yes.
Do you mind talking about that whole process coming out of lesbianism? What
Yeah.
was the catalyst for that?
So I had been with this person, this woman for 7 years, and she had her mental state had dissolved essentially, and like we were doing like a bunch of drugs, and some people like things like marijuana, like it can trigger like psychosis, and so she became very depressed, and she was losing her mind, and I was taking care of her, and it like my whole life was revolving around taking care of this person who hated me. Like she was so mean to me, and like it and I just kept going because I thought I was in love with her, and it like I worked maybe like 5 miles from our apartment, and I would like take my lunch break and go and like try and get her out of bed to make sure she like went to school, and like she treated me terribly, and like she like knew exactly what to say to like rip at me, and like women are very like perceptive, like emotionally, and so I feel like, and as her mental state dissolved, like she knew like just the right things to like say that would cut me, so it was just not a good situation. And after I finally left and like started to pull away from that and get some distance, it was more of like I'm not like a lesbian anymore, but I was like, I'm never dating a woman again. Like this is women like I don't know, like the hormones like at the same time, and like we sync up, and like it is we do not balance each other out. Like we
Uh-huh.
are not meant to be
Yep.
partners like that. Like I think like
Mhm.
women can live together in like a communal way and like make that work, but like
Mhm.
not like a woman cannot replace a man. Like
Yeah.
God designed us to
Yep.
like
Amen to
fit
that.
together. Like we have
Yep.
roles, and a woman cannot
Mhm.
fill a man's role. And
Yeah.
I had to learn that the hard way. But
Yeah.
after I finally like escaped that situation, and like when you're in an abusive relationship, there's like a cycle that happens, and you get addicted to the cycle, and it feels like
Yeah.
you can't escape. Like because you're always waiting for like the good times. Like you remember like the good times, and like when you're going through like the cycle of like of abuse, it anyway, it's just addictive. So once I finally made it out of that, I was like, all right, not doing that again. And then I think I was single for 6 months, almost a year, and I met my husband.
Cool.
The man who would be my husband,
Right.
at a New Year's party. He had his AR-15, and I was
like this guy.
liberal. Yeah, well, he's great, but I was a liberal at the time, and I was like, "You have an AR-15?" Like, what? And he like shot it at the party, and like, I was like, "Man, who is this guy?" But he was so sweet to me. Like, he he's the nicest, kindest person I've ever been with, and like, obviously, I have a record of not the greatest people in my life. So
Right.
he and he helped me to get into rehab and to like straighten myself out. And anyway, yes. So
That's awesome, man. That's
he's
so
great.
cool.
Yeah.
Kind of a follow-up question to that story. Actually, Jay Reese had a great question. She says, I'll just put it up on the screen here. She says, Shannon, can you contribute anything to conversation of how the church should be to those coming from a homosexual lifestyle?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thanks, Jay.
I think taking like a more sympathetic route instead of like condemnation or or judgment. Like I like taking a more sympathetic position versus like you're an abomination. Like I've met people so coming out as having been previously a lesbian was very difficult for me, because there's a huge stigma attached to it, especially for Christians, because the politics surrounding all of that. People are up in arms about it. But calling somebody an abomination and like not giving them the love of Christ, that's not gonna. It just pushes people away.
Yeah,
Um,
sure. And that's a big word, abomination. I mean, there are a lot of things in the Bible that are abominations to God.
Yeah.
Proverbs says that a proud look,
Mhm.
a haughty spirit, a lying tongue. They're all, the Lord hates 6 things, 7 are an abomination to him. And it goes down that list.
Mhm.
They uses that word. So to call someone that would be, it's not going to be productive. Let the Holy Spirit convict people. But like, how should the church bring these people in and minister to them?
I think instead of like focusing on somebody because they're gay or lesbian, like really emphasizing that you're more than your sexuality,
Yes.
will probably go a long way. Like your identity is not the person you're sleeping with. It's not the sex of the person you're sleeping with. Like you are more than being a lesbian. You're more than a gay man. Like you are a child of God. Like you are more than that.
You're more than your pronouns.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's just narcissism.
Yeah, it really is. Well, and that's such a struggle because one, we live in a current pop culture that tells you that your sexual identity, your pronouns, your gender preference for the hour or the day is a badge of honor that you should wear
Mm.
Yeah.
at all times and flaunt and carry your life, as your anchor point, as your lodestar through life.
Yep.
And then also the church has this really big problem. Like the problem 20, 30 years ago was being so cruel or callous towards gays and lesbians who wanted to be a part of God's community. Now the problem has become so politicized, and sexuality has become so weaponized that churches, I think, they are overly permissive and catering to that now. And I've watched it blow up at least 2 churches, here in town because of it. And there's a difference between, it's like the church has a really tough struggle because a really hard road ahead, because it has to choose, it has to walk this fine line between not being permissive but not being condemnatory either.
Yeah.
And that's a real tough thing to so it's like, how do you treat it? Do you treat it like you would treat an alcoholic, or would you treat it like someone who is a recidivist convict? Like, how do you kind of approach that is very, very tough for a church. And again, like, if you're not a fully inclusive church in the 21st century, then like you'll probably wind up on 60 Minutes,
Yeah.
and have your 501c3 status yanked for, hate crime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I feel like it can be a fine line, but I think that being sympathetic towards people who feel like they're locked into like a sexual identity and like that's who they are, it's different from hanging like the pride flag out and like having like the drag queen story hour like at the church or whatever like that. There's still like a lot of things that churches can do without like going all the way into wokeism,
Yeah.
There's
a way to be compassionate and welcome people in and love them without holding their feet to the fire and burning them at the stake, and also on the other hand just like handing them the keys to the kingdom and saying, no, you're perfectly fine just the way you are. You
have to have mercy and truth. You have to have mercy and truth.
Yep.
That's a hard road to walk.
The belt of truth. We learned about that today in Ephesians. Anyway,
that's awesome.
Oh man, I was going to say something. Also another piece of advice for people who want to like welcome people who are of the like the LBGT blah blah blah, that so don't expect people to like change straight away. So like if you bring your gay friend over, like start bringing them to church and they're thinking about joining Christianity, like you can't expect like all of their lifestyles to change. Like the Holy Spirit moves, but he can work instantly or he can take a long time. So I think like you can avoid promoting and like encouraging like hedonistic behavior, but at the same time I think having patience and like being like a gentle guiding hand,
When you got saved, did you sort of feel that stuff? Did you feel those desires going away, or did you have to really work hard at it to sort of fight it, sort of like someone trying to quit smoking or something?
No, I didn't fight like losing those desires. Like it happened like as it felt like a gradual lessening. Like I just I can still I still admire beauty, but it's not like I feel like the reason why like being a lesbian or being gay, like I feel like the reason that is wrong or wrong is because it is like a perversion and a corruption of like brotherly love or sisterly love. And like I have felt those like those feelings, like they're just not there anymore. And it's not something I tried to do. It was just God working in me.
It's like you were
And
delivered from it.
right, exactly. And he separately with cigarettes, he healed me of smoking. Like I could not quit smoking. I could not stop. Even when I was pregnant with my first son, like I still snuck a cigarette like once a day, you know?
Yeah.
Like I could not stop. And then after I was saved, I cried and was begging God to like take cigarettes, like the want to smoke, to take it away. And like I don't know why he did it, but like I have not smoked a cigarette since.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Man, good for you.
Yeah.
That's
Praise
awesome.
God.
Yeah, God's good.
Yeah.
That's cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. I had, well, let me get back up to it here. See if I can find the comment. It was really good. I lost it.
Shannon, it's so adorable how Nick told me how nervous you were for doing this, but yeah, this
Yes.
is like probably one of the best interviews
Yeah, this has
we've
been-
had in like
Aw,
6 months.
been-
Thank you.
Yeah, and the
I'm super
and
nervous.
The chat is going crazy.
it
too,
is.
by the
Yeah, I've
way.
had an eye on the chat too, and a lot of people are really
And a
being
lot of
blessed by
positive
this.
feedback.
They're really being blessed by this.
No, that makes me
so
feel good.
Killing it,
Yeah,
kid.
this is awesome.
Thank you.
This is awesome.
You know, actually, real quick
Yeah,
to
yeah.
cap off this whole segment, one thing that I think really also makes a big difference is that, like, it seems like you married a real man, a
Mhm.
masculine man, and I think one of the biggest missteps that we as a society have taken, that I have noticed at least for 20 years, I'm sure it predates that, but I noticed it first with the metrosexual movement, is a lot of women want, you know, gentle men. They want, you know, they want soy boys, basically.
Yeah.
And this is sort of like marrying a lesbian with an outie instead of an innie. And it's just, it's not only is it unfulfilling, but it's just like, it's completely, you know, it's such a mistake.
Yep.
You know, but society teaches men to be more feminine, and the church teaches men too. It's my biggest gripe with the church is like, it's, you know, the church does not teach men to be masculine warriors or to embrace masculinity, and it doesn't teach their women to embrace the masculinity of men and for men to be strong and honorable, but it teaches men gentle Jesus, meek and mild, you know. And so men don't know what to do with their masculinity anymore, because they operate in a society that wants them to be, you know, wants them to be weak, wants them to basically, you know, be like women, be more like a woman, cry more, you know. And it just, so you dodged a major bullet by like marrying a dude.
Yeah. Well, I was like, I do not want, like, I want to be with a man, like a man.
Right.
Like, I don't want to date a woman again. And like, I didn't intentionally like look for somebody who was more masculine. Also, he has become more masculine over the years. I think it's like, you know, he also, anyway, he's a man.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And that's like, I was done with all of that, you know, like
Yeah.
there has to be a balance.
Yeah.
So
I think
I
also
agree.
was the Jungian word you were looking for earlier archetype?
No, but I do like
Okay.
archetypes. No, it was the man, it's like actualized, like the actualized being.
Yeah.
Man, I can't
Yeah.
remember exactly,
Dang,
but
I thought
I
I
do
had
like
found it.
archetypes.
Isn't Jordan
Wow.
Peterson big?
Yeah,
on
and Stephen Pressfield.
Jungian. Yeah.
Yes.
Pressfield
they're
and
big into
Peterson
Jungian
both.
psychology.
Yeah, Peterson, like, he talks all the time about incorporating the shadow.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's good stuff, and it's stuff no one really wants to, like, you think that you have a handle on, you know, psychology and everything until you like sit down and really start trying to explore your own shadow.
Yep.
And that is, it's like that part in Dune where, you know, Paul says to the Bene Gesserit, look into the place where you dare not see and you'll find me staring back at you. Like, it is, yeah, it's some heady, scary stuff when you start really dissecting the shadow within you. And,
Yeah, and like there I forget what it's called. There's like a process that Jung talks about doing where like you it's sort of like dreaming, but you're like in your head. Oh man, I can't remember what it's called. but like one of the ways to explore your psyche is to essentially, it's kind of like meditating, but like
Mhm.
you intentionally like go into your head and like you're looking around, and it's as if like your eyes are open and you're looking around in reality. I have to
Yeah.
Anyway, Jung can there's some rabbit trails.
Yeah.
Like he goes deep. But
Yeah.
I highly recommend it. That's one of the reasons I like Jordan Peterson also. My
Mhm.
dad introduced me to Jordan Peterson. I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, he likes Jung?" Like,
Yeah.
yes.
That's part of your gateway.
And he's over with the Daily Wire
Yeah.
now. He's signed over with the Daily Wire.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool. Well, you want to transition to?
Yep.
Let's transition over to
The big topic we all wanted to talk
the-
about because it was
which
so
one? New
cool.
Age?
And so,
Yeah.
I'll
so
let you ask the question. You can probably frame it better.
Sure.
I'll just ramble.
So Shannon, you had specifically mentioned this a little bit, and we had touched on it briefly. Supernatural experiences such as sleep paralysis, also referred to sometimes as hypnagogic or hypnagogia, hypnagogic experiences, and specifically the vibrational state.
Yep.
Talk about that.
So in a previous episode with Roxana, Nick had mentioned his experience where like he felt like the vibrations. I forget the word you used.
ceiling
Did you use
fan.
vibrations?
Yeah,
You thought it was
There
the
a
ceiling
vibrating.
fan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was not the ceiling fan. That's just your brain. Like it sort of incorporates things as you're coming out of that state.
Okay.
But it that's the vibrational state. So that's what happens. That's a part of the process of like if you want to astral project. That was something I got really into, is astral
Jay
projection.
Reese literally just mentioned that.
Oh, really?
Before you said that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Astral, because I told her. But
Oh, okay.
Gotcha.
yeah. So when I learned how to astral project and I got very into that, and it works, like it's a real thing, like you can do it. Although I do not recommend it because you open yourself up. I've talked to people where like they say they felt something ride back in with them, like when they went back to their body. So I have not done it since being saved, but I've felt it start to happen, and like praying like to Jesus like stops it from happening, which is praise God.
Yeah.
Like I feel like now that I'm saved and I don't want to astral project anymore, like I feel like demons or whatever like try to like pull me out sometimes.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
that's the same thing that happens with alien abductions.
Right. It's the same. Yeah. The first time that happened to me, I thought I was being abducted by an alien. I was like 16.
Really?
Yeah. And I was at my dad's house, and like I woke up and like I heard the vibrations, and like I saw like flashing lights, and like I couldn't move, and I thought, I really and truly believed I was being abducted by aliens. And I did not know what had happened. This was before smartphones. Like, so after it happened, I couldn't like jump on the internet and like look it up and see what happened, like, or see if anybody else had experienced that. So I thought, yeah, I'd been abducted by aliens. So but eventually I did look it up, and it's, the sleep paralysis, but that is also like the first step towards astral projection. So you can teach yourself to do it by intentionally triggering sleep paralysis, and the vibrations that happen are your brain waves. So when your body is asleep and like your brain is asleep, like the type of waves that you're producing change. They become like deeper and like larger. So some people, when they reach sleep paralysis, like a part of your brain wakes up, but the rest of it is still asleep. So you can feel and hear like the vibrations that your brain is putting out. And it I don't know, it's not that a lot of people think there's like paranormal stuff tied to that. For me, like it can get so hard that like it hurts, like the vibrations feel like a jackhammer, and like it hurts like through my jaw and like all up through here. But
yeah, my eardrums were sore. Like after I woke up, my ears were hurting.
Yeah, it's very weird. Like
You think that can be forced on someone? Because I was not certainly I wasn't trying to do it. I didn't, and as it was happening, I wasn't wanting it to happen.
Yes.
It was against my will.
Yeah.
That any of this started happening to me.
Yeah. I think that's how like demons and stuff will like pull you out of your body, is through that process. So like absolutely, I've had it happen to me where like it's forced upon me and I don't want it to happen, and thank God, like praying, it makes it stop. So it like nothing's happened, but I've definitely had it happen where like I feel like something is trying to force me out. So it's pretty cool. It's interesting.
Did that kind of stuff happen from an early age? Did it happen when you started to like girls? Did it happen when you were in witchcraft? Did it happen after you got saved?
It started happening after, so at first it started happening after I got into witchcraft. And like I would have like shadow people, like I call them shadow people, like come at me like while like I was in that state, and like be trying to like strangle me, and anyway, I was plagued by shadow people, and that's one of the reasons I stopped doing witchcraft for a long time, was the entities but like messing with me.
Feel like so you feel like the witchcraft, the occult, made you vulnerable to those attacks?
Yeah, definitely, because I opened myself up to it. Like it's basically like putting a big sign out saying like, come play with me. Like I'll play back. Like I won't call Jesus on you.
So
right, yeah,
right. Those you would see, and that would happen. Those shadow people would attack you while you were in this state, while you're in the sleep paralysis state.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Did you ever see them when you were not in that state?
Yeah, like if I went a couple days without sleeping, I would start to see them, like in the peripherals. So, yes.
And you felt them. You said they tried to strangle you. Was that right?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Several occasions, like I would start to feel like their hands. I don't. Is demons.
Did
obviously.
you ever feel? Because there is that painting that
the
iconic.
Goya. Yeah, with him sitting on the chest, like the demon thing,
and then the mare's head around the corner. Yeah, it's very creepy. There's what is that? Probably, is that Renaissance or post-Renaissance painting? I can't remember exactly how old it is, but yeah, it's like the classic hypnagogia painting of the ghoul or the little demon sitting on someone's chest.
It's actually a print, I think. I don't think it's a painting. I think it's a print.
Oh, is it really? Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Like
he was into printmaking. I minored in printmaking in college. So
okay, cool.
We studied a lot of Goya.
That's awesome. Well, and a lot of people report that they feel something sitting on their chest when they have those sleep paralysis. I had it, and there was a healthy amount of sleep deprivation that was happening during that time. I was on upwards of 1,000 milligrams of antidepressants a day.
Wow.
And so sleep was, and I was working a night job, so like sleep was kind of wonky. I was right in the middle of writing the books, and so like it was a pretty active time, I think, internally or spiritual or whatever. And I remember there were some times where like things got a little weird in that apartment. So
yeah, that'll definitely, like having like a weird sleep schedule can trigger it for sure. That's how it happened for me.
There's another comment here by the branch. He says that during those states, sleep paralysis, they also take your voice because of the power they have. You have to think his name over and over to help you break there, and that's exactly what happened to me. That's exactly what I had to do. It's the only thing I could do. I had to think. I had to keep thinking Jesus' name over and over, and it didn't work at first. But eventually it did. But it's exactly what I experienced. It was crazy.
There's a lot of confirmations about that. I have a friend who had mentioned to me this channel on, I think it's on Telegram, it might be Twitter, where he compiled he sort of aggregated a bunch of anecdotal experiences from people who had all taken DMT and had all had these sort of experiences where they either went into some place internally or externally, like astral projected, and they all would encounter, and these are not people who know each other. I think it was maybe aggregated from like some Reddit forums or something.
I remember this.
I'm sorry, I don't have all the information off the top of my head, but they would go, they would have these experiences with these other entities that would bless them with knowledge, and they would come to them, as like benevolent entities. But the weird thing that would happen is, in every one of these stories, these people would end up having these conversations, sometimes multiple times, with these ostensibly benevolent entities, and then whenever the person would maybe challenge the entity on something or question it, not even challenge it, just question it, the entity would on a dime turn vicious towards them. And then there were other times where other entities, probably the same people that like certain people refer to as machine elves,
I've heard that term.
Yep. These one entities would be communicating with the person, and then another one would come in, and then they would start fighting and arguing, or the first one would flee in terror of the second one because they were competitive. It was like basically like either fallen angels or demon lords or whatever, but they were clearly malevolent entities masquerading as benevolent and it took nothing for the masquerade to be over, for the mask to slip.
As soon as you question it, they turn instantly. Like you think like this thing is your friend, like a spirit guide, and then if you question anything, like it's like the mask like drops, like it transforms into I guess like a malevolent being. Like I have a friend who, so Demi Lovato is into astral projection and communicating with aliens, and I know a few people who are also into that, and it I don't know, it's very sad. Some of that stuff seeps into some churches too, like Christianity. And like
yoga.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're good. Yoga. But all these beings have the same message. They're always here to save humanity, and they're here to save the earth from humanity. They have to save humanity from humanity's self. And it's always like the green message, like the environmentalism. Yes. Yep.
There's nothing more insidiously anti-human than environmentalism. And I have had those arguments where people literally say the only way to save the planet is for us to stop having kids, and there needs to be less people. And when you understand the spiritual connection between those two, you understand that, like, whether it's the fallen or demons or whatever, it's really either of those two. They covet the earth, and Satan, and Satan was granted dominion over the earth. That's the whole temptation of Christ. You can't offer what's not yours to give. And we are squatters to them. They hate us because we are usurpers to possibly everything that they have worked so hard to build.
We're made out of dust. Like, who are these beings made out of dust? Like,
and after all we struggled for to compose this world with Lucifer, and operating as the conductor, and we created the Garden, of Eden, and then these humans come along and take it all from us. Like, this is ours. So you convince them, save the planet, have an abortion. I mean, I won't mention his name, but one of my favorite comedians, and this is like, whatever, but like one of his taglines was "Abortion is green," and he has a very funny comedy routine based off of it.
Sick, but it does truly reflect kind of the.
But that is the message.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the narrative.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
an intensely anti-human message, and they always do. There was the remake of The Day the Earth Stood Still, and that was the whole thing. The Keanu Reeves movie where he's
Didn't see it.
yeah, so you're not missing much. It's a remake, but it's the same thing where he's an alien. He comes to Earth, and he comes to Earth to tell the humans to like stop destroying the planet,
Yeah.
or else,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, all those people that keep having the experiences from aliens and those messages from aliens, and that's all the
Yep.
same message. We're
Yep.
basically here to help save you from yourselves.
Yep.
L.A. Marzulli talks about the disclosure and the coming of these beings being really, it's going to be the Great Deception. It's going to be the next Great Deception, because people are going to see those things. Millions are going to fall away from their faith. But I think that we'll really see it around. I think they'll make their official deceptive appearance globally, big scale, wide scale, when something like a nuclear weapon goes off. That'll be the catalyst, because there's been this
Threat.
stair-stepping of disclosures happening over the past several years. When something big happens, the aliens will show up and teach us how to save ourselves and what everything is really all about and who actually created us. And what's funny about those messages is that none of them validate anything that God has said in his word.
Yeah.
None of them.
Yeah.
They'll validate everything else. But,
everything else but Christianity, unless it's some mutated Luciferian, version of Christianity that's like
Unitarian.
Unitarian message. Like
Yeah.
we're all fine, and God is just love, and
The Christ consciousness.
yes, the Christ consciousness.
Yep.
Yeah, what's the other name for that? I mean, it's the New Age concept, but Theosophy. That's what it is.
Theosophy. Yep.
Theosophy. Yeah, and
Helen Blavatsky founded that, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, she wasn't the originator, but that's what we like. It's all the same thing, like going all the way back to like Babylon. It's like the same thing. We think it's new. It's the new cool thing. And like, it's been happening for thousands of years. It's literally the same thing.
That's the interesting thing about that stuff, is that it is called the New Age, but there's nothing new about it. So it really makes you kind of wonder, how old are things really, civilizationally?
Yeah.
I hear a little one in the background. Mom, it's time. Come on. I want my
No, we're good.
Mom, I want my meatloaf.
Yeah,
I want it now.
Meatloaf now.
Chicken nuggets.
Chicken nuggets.
Yeah.
Yes. You know what?
Yeah.
How dare I stand in the way of chicken nuggets?
No, you guys are fine. Sorry.
Rose.
My
go
speaker's
ahead.
too good. My mic is picking up everything.
I think it's cute. I like it. I like when there are like real world distractions, or interactions that are not part of the show. Like that's kind of like my favorite moments.
Oh, really? It breaks the fourth wall or whatever.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it makes it more
ruins the
human.
illusion. Yeah.
It adds authenticity to it. Like
Yes.
if a kid bounces in here and accidentally pukes on the keyboard, like.
Or my old
Sucks
dog
for you,
decides
but I
to
think it's
wake up
cute,
and
you
comes
know.
over here and starts nudging us.
Yeah,
She's sleeping back there.
yeah. She's hanging out.
I think she's still
No.
alive. Yeah, we'll see.
Nick's just waiting for a bird.
I'll know in a couple days.
Just wants a parrot. Yeah. Roseanne, one of our patrons, I think she knows you guys too. I think you guys are all friends. She made the comment. First of all, that what was the other one? New Agers. She made two that were really funny. She said New Agers are just unpleasant.
Yes.
and they're like, that's the thing. There's so many. I don't know any happy, well-adjusted, friendly, witches / lesbians. Like, maybe you were one back in the day. I don't know. But like,
I thought I
okay,
was happy, but I was pretty miserable. Like
Really?
drinking all the time, like drinking myself at a table, and drugs, and I was miserable, and I didn't see it until until I was saved, until like you look
Yeah.
back and like all the behaviors, like I was just participating in self-destructive behavior over and over and over again. Like, you know, it's happiness. Well, what is happiness really? But
Contentment,
God,
purpose, you know,
yes,
peace
yes,
and quiet.
purpose. Yes, yeah, but
a nap.
yeah, some of the most miserable people I've ever met were rich lesbians. But I love women. I love
Sure.
everybody. Like I don't, no judgment on lesbians.
Roseanne used the word miserable specifically. She said all the women I know that are self-proclaimed witches are miserable.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
I've known Roseanne since I was 16. So,
oh, really? Okay.
Yes, so she's seen it all.
That's awesome. How
Yeah.
cool. Let's see.
So what would be, you know, we're coming up on 2 hours. We're getting close to the 2 hour mark.
Yeah.
What would be your message now on, you know, on this side of the cross, now that you're a believer, and you see the younger generations now, because a lot of the deception now is happening among the younger generations. What would be your message to them, your warnings to them, and your message to them?
Well, I would
No
say
pressure.
it seems like it feels counterintuitive in a way, but freedom is found in the gospel. It can feel counterintuitive because you're giving up your own will to follow these rules that were set down like thousands of years ago, you know, and it can feel like you're just going to be controlled. You become like a cog. You're giving in to the oppression, but that is a deception. And if you try it and you know, just try to open your mind, especially with like today, like having an open mind is like the highest honor, really. Like the best you can be is to be so open that your brain falls out. So you like try and like hold on to that, you know, and like look at the gospel and like, I'm telling you, like this is where life is. Like this is, my life began truly when I was saved, and then also when I
Amen.
had children. So get married and have kids. But
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love it. Thank you for that.
yes.
That's great. Well, where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
So Instagram's the best way.
Okay.
Mama Shay OC.
Okay.
Yes, that's me.
Okay.
That's
All
where
right.
I'm also on Twitter, but I don't ever use it. But also Mama Shay OC, and then I'm pretty sure my Facebook is that also. But
Yeah.
anyway, Mama Shay OC.
Very cool. This has been really awesome. And, you know, our prayer is that God takes this interview and gets it in front of the people that need to hear it, need to see it, and that he uses it.
Yes.
Yeah, I can think of at least 2 people off the top of my head that I need to send this interview to right now.
I pray every day for God to use me and like use the numerous mistakes that I made to reach out to anyone, at least one person. If one person can hear my testimony and come to know God, like that makes everything worth it, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
and you were delivered from it. That's the
Yes.
thing. I think there are so many people who, you know,
Yeah.
whether they were abused as a child, if they were traumatized, or if they just, you know, feel too guilty, they feel like,
Yeah.
you know, they don't, despite the fact that the world constantly tells you how much you deserve everything and how you're okay and you're perfect just the way you are, there's still a lot of people who live in that world who really don't think they are worthy of any sort of redemption or salvation or help or hope, you know, and so they continue to like circle the drain because they don't have any sort of hope, you know. But here you are, like living testimony that like when you walk away from that stuff, you can have a life,
Yep.
with a spouse. You can have a husband, you can have children, and you can have
Yep.
peace.
And peace and joy in your
Mhm.
life.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Jesus is the
Purpose.
escape hatch. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Like if nothing else, like if you're gonna refuse Christianity, then at least listen to Jordan Peterson because he like the biblical, like those talks that he does about the psychology of the Bible,
Yeah.
like those are great. Like
Yeah.
you have like anyway, yes.
Yeah.
Learning
Yeah,
about
those are good.
Yes.
Those were my sort of gateway stepping stones back. And
That's
and
amazing.
and I certainly have my qualms with him about those. Maybe not so much now, because I think he probably is a Christian now.
I think
He's
it
been
is, yeah.
getting closer and closer to that over the past few years. But whatever, like he talked about the Bible in ways that no one else did.
God's using them.
Yeah, God
Yeah.
uses him. Yeah, God has for sure used Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
Yes.
Despite the agnostic or atheist libertarians who refuse to be Christian, but they still love Jordan Peterson. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, fair enough, whatever.
Well,
Just
Yeah.
let God work on them too.
that's
you
right.
know?
Yeah,
That's exactly
that's-
right.
That's my husband, basically, like the agnostic libertarian. That's how he was. And then Jordan Peterson helped with bringing him over to our side.
Isn't that crazy?
So,
Unintentionally.
Yeah.
Because that was not Jordan Peterson's intent. Jordan Peterson was not witnessing.
Yeah.
But God used him.
God uses
anyways.
him.
Yeah.
Amen.
It's awesome.
Yeah, man. When I first learned of Jordan Peterson, I mean, I was a believer, and I disagreed with him on a lot of things, evolutionary psychology and all, a lot of those things. But man, the more and more I watched him, the more I was like, why don't we have people of this intellectual prowess
Saying things
in
like
the
this in the
church?
pulpit.
Yeah.
Oh
in
my
the
gosh.
church? Yeah, we can't aspire to be as intellectual as
No, he's
As
arguably
Jordan
the
Peterson.
brightest living mind of our time.
for sure.
Yeah.
But I do, I want to attain to at least that level of being that articulate.
Yeah.
And having a ready defense of my faith in the gospel. I
Yeah.
would love to be able to be as well spoken and clear and precise with language.
Yeah.
One of his rules for life: be
Yeah.
precise with your words. I'd love to be precise like
Yeah.
he is.
Yeah.
Have good, have adroit
Apologetic.
articulation. Yeah. For your apologetics.
Mhm.
Yeah. And attuned spirituality, be an adeptus astartes
There you go.
of salvation.
It's so frustrating, like studying and learning all this stuff, studying scripture and just everything's coming here, like connecting all these dots. Like, oh man, this is awesome. It's so just overwhelmingly powerful and beautiful. And you go to tell somebody, it comes out like, oh, read this thing that was cool. And
That's how it is for me right now.
It's
I
like,
have to
come
work on the
work.
articulate on
Yeah.
my speech. I talk real good. I have to pray. I have to pray over my Bible group every week, and it is so bad. Like praying over people. I'm working on it.
I'm super
like,
self-conscious when I pray. I'm like, this
words.
probably sounds awful.
It's funny.
My 10-year-old could do better than this.
That's
better than what I'm
surprising.
doing right now.
Like you're both very well spoken. Like it's very
Oh, thank you.
it's
I appreciate it.
yeah.
I do not
you
feel
have
that
like
way,
a charm about you. Anyway, that's why I love the Goslings. But
Well,
Thank you.
It's so funny how shy or nervous you were about this, but yet Shannon has the calm, collected, if not energy, then at least the perception of energy of someone who is just like, yeah, it's okay. I've been there.
Yeah,
well, I have, unfortunately. Well, I mean, or fortunately, God uses it. But yes, I have seen many mistakes were made.
You have a
lifetime.
solid confidence, if not perception of confidence about you.
Well,
this was
thank you.
awesome. Yeah.
Fake it
This has
until you
been
make
done.
it.
That's
Mhm.
good. No, very,
Mhm.
very grounded, and you have a lot of things to say because it's coming from a level of coming from actual experience.
Yeah.
And coming over to now, the Holy Spirit lives in you.
Yeah.
And you're just coming at people with this peaceful. Yeah, I know. I've been there.
Amen.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. Like a veteran.
Yeah.
A veteran of the psychic wars.
No.
Yeah.
No, thank you. That makes me feel good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Shannon, this has been awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
It would be so much fun to like maybe have you and Jay Reese Bradley on at the same time.
Oh,
Because you're
I would
both
love that.
you're so
Yeah.
different when we speak to you individually. You're so different.
Yeah.
I would be fascinated to see what this
I'm
would be
down for
like.
that.
we're like
together.
sisters.
Yeah.
She's my sister in Christ, but like we're like soul sisters.
I could see it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
That'd
yeah,
be a fun
when-
conversation.
Sorry.
It'd be awesome because I wouldn't have to say anything. Like we could
Yeah.
just like I'm pretty sure you
What do
Me
two.
and Angela can
facilitate it.
talk and talk and talk.
I'm all about it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
And Joey Payne says, yes, thank you so much for your testimony. That's my mom, by the way. I'm really
Aw.
glad and honored that she watched this today.
You are
So,
most
yeah.
welcome, Joey. Thank you for listening, and thank you for raising this awesome man or two awesome men. I don't know what the family situation is, but
That's okay. That's okay.
So,
Yeah.
but it's the Brady Bunch.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's
a
right.
little bit. Yeah. Yeah. Love
But
Joey though.
Thank you.
Joey's awesome.
Thank y'all for listening,
You're
all of our
welcome.
listeners.
Yeah, this was great. We hope everybody enjoyed it. We had an awesome chat, lots of great comments, lots of great discussions. So I think this was very beneficial for a lot of people. So
Yeah.
if you're listening
Awesome.
to this, Jim podcast form, it's worth it to go back and watch the video and watch the chat.
Yep.
'Cause there's a lot of good information flowing around in
Yep.
there. So
I didn't know you could do that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Like on
Yeah.
YouTube, you can do that.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I'm
I
totally
think you
gonna do
usually
that.
have to wait like 24, maybe
Yeah, it takes
48
a day
hours.
or two before all the chat comments are actually
Oh.
in the. I mean, you
Yeah.
can do it live. Obviously, you can see all the chats live, but it does
Right.
take, I think, a day or two to go back and watch the video and see all the comments that are left. So,
Mhm.
so I think they scour our comments looking for a reason to,
That's cool.
strike
Awesome.
Yeah.
the channel or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll let you go and get back
Yeah.
to your family. And thank you again.
Yes.
Yeah.
been
Thank you
so great.
guys.
Really enjoyed
Yes.
it. And
Bye.
we'll
Be
catch
seeing you.
Yeah, you know it. We'll catch you again probably next week. I hope you're. Oh yeah, you gotta. Next week is gonna be a really
This-
cool. Next Sunday is gonna be a really cool interview with Ryan Pitterson.
Oh, yeah.
He wrote a book called Nephilim Judgment,
Oh, wow.
or excuse me, Judgment of the Nephilim, and then a follow-up book that just came out, The Final Nephilim, and he talks about that whole deception of,
Oh, that's cool.
kind of what's coming.
Yeah.
Very end timesy,
Cool.
tying prehistory into end times. So it'll be really
Yeah, if
interesting.
you like Gary Wayne, it's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
It's so juicy. All right.
Yeah.
I'll let you guys go. Thank
All right.
you.
We'll see you later,
see
Shannon.
you.
out.
Bye.
Bye. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are really going to be blessed by that
Yeah.
interview. Someone's going to have their cage rattled.
Yeah.
It's going to be a wake up call for some people.
Yeah, that was very effective
Yeah.
and probably very evocative for a lot of people who, either mess around with that world or, think it's innocuous, or it's just pure fantasy.
Mhm.
Branch, you had asked where you could find, like, if Shannon had any social media. She does. It probably will get posted, like, maybe in the show notes, but you can backtrack this live stream probably about 10 minutes, maybe 8 minutes to find where she had mentioned where she is. So yeah, we're very happy to have Shannon join us and give us her testimony.
Yep.
And a very inspiring, very, very enlightening
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
So, and she's really cool to talk to.
Yeah. It's a
so,
lot of fun.
yeah.
Well, I obviously already made the announcement about what's happening next week.
Mhm.
What else should we do? Real quick, I want to give our patrons a shout, of course.
Mhm.
Thank you, Jay Reese, Shannon,
Mhm.
Roseanne, Adam, Ann, and Mike.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for supporting what we're doing here, and it's helping us make it better and better all the time.
Yeah.
And if
absolutely.
you're not a patron, we would love your support so we can have more amazing guests like Shannon on that can.
Mhm.
She struck down the darkness, man. Her interview
Yeah.
struck down the darkness today. I mean, this is our mission,
Yeah.
and she nailed it. And we would love for you guys to support the show so we can do more of this. Go to Patreon.
Yeah.
Just the Gosslings, patreon.com, the Gosslings. You'll find us. It's $5 a month. And there are perks and extra content, and
Mhm.
a great community. Shannon's a part of that community.
Yeah.
Jay Reese is a part of that community. I mean, just excellent people
Yeah.
in there. So we're all kind of on this journey together.
Yeah.
And if you really liked her shirt, which you should, because it was amazing, You Can't Hack a Typewriter shirt, or what I'm wearing here,
Yeah.
you can go to our basically our Teespring page there. It's in the show notes as well, and get you one.
The Gosslings.creator/springs.com.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, thank you to everyone in the chat. Kira, Mike Fisher, J. Reese Bradley, Roseanne, Branch, Kim Masters. There were probably 2 or 3 others. Like, this was probably one of the better chats we've had.
Yeah, this has been really great. I mean,
Yeah.
gosh, you guys have really come out with your support, and the conversation in the chat looks like it was fantastic. I can't go back. I can't wait to go back and read all this. But yeah, Kira, Will, Branch,
Will's good.
Mike was on.
Joey.
Roseanne was on. Gosh, who am I missing? Abinare was on.
Abinare, yeah, that was
And
the other one.
I'm scrolling back through here. I want to just give everyone a shout out if I can find you, Mike. Okay, I think I may have got.
I think we got them all. Yeah. If we
Okay.
didn't mention you, leave us a comment and let us know.
Yeah, that's right. Leave us a comment. Absolutely. Roseanne asked, how do we get a shirt? You can go to this link. Hold on. Let me get this link right here,
Mm-hmm.
and you can get a shirt. Or if you're a Patreon member, you get there's a discount on the shirt. It takes you to the same site, but you get a discount on the shirts too, 15% or something. Yeah. And we will share the discount code with you.
The-Gosslings.creator-spring.com.
Yeah.
And Gosslings is with 2 S's.
2 S's.
There are 2 S's in Gosslings, Maverick.
That's right. Yeah, if you go and type Gosling with 1 S anywhere on the line, it's Ryan Gosling, and as you know, we don't like him very much. But it's 2 S's.
It's just my pure naked jealousy. That's all.
It's big of you to admit that. He doesn't use Giordani Jovanovic products.
He does not. No,
you have to have 2 S's for that level of.
Yeah, you got to be double S cool.
Double S cool. Yeah, there you go. I like that.
Be sexy, be deadly, be as sexy as you are deadly with Giordani Jovanovic.
Yes.
Real products for real men.
Oh, and Cindy too. Cindy jumped on. Such a great chat, Shannon.
Cindy Gilbert,
you did awesome, my friend. You are such a blessing and inspiration.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Nice.
Man. That's awesome.
All right, thanks, Cindy.
Very cool.
Well,
I think that's it for this week, guys. Next week, Ryan Pitterson. It's going to be an awesome conversation about his book, Final Nephilim.
Yeah,
it's going to be so good, guys. It's going to be so good.
If you're a fan of Gary Wayne, if you're a fan of Derek Gilbert, then you'll want to tune in next week for our live interview. We're
going to be talking Bible giants. We're going to be talking about Antichrist. We're going to be talking about prehistory, right? Before the flood.
Maybe some Great Delusion stuff. Maybe some Antichrist stuff.
Yeah, he's got a real interesting take on second incursion.
That's something that always fascinates me, because that is the second incursion of the Nephilim is one of those hot button topic issues that no one really seems to have an authoritative, uniform position on. Like it's one of those issues that hasn't been settled yet. So
it
I'm always
hasn't been settled.
Curious to see what anybody has to say.
Yeah. He lays it out pretty clear in his book. It's a pretty good case.
Yeah.
I'm interested to talk to him about it.
Oh, Gabe was in the comments.
Oh, Gabe. Yeah. Gabe. Thank you. Yeah. Gabriel Bello, the man we interviewed last week. Phenomenal interview. We recorded Gabe.
Yeah.
And we're going to be airing that on the 16th. You guys are not going to want to miss that.
So
October 16th. So week after next, our interview with Gabriel Bello, talking about the metaphysics of music, and music is spiritual warfare. It's an awesome conversation.
Yeah, and his testimony is pretty incredible too.
Yes, it is. With him. Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff, man. Smart guy, and a lot of fun. We thought we were going to have him for an hour. We talked to him for over 2.5 hours. It was almost a 3-hour interview.
I think it was a record.
It was a record. Yeah, it was the longest. It was even longer than anything we've ever done with Derek and Gary.
Yep.
Like it was crazy. And Avanari, you're saying that you'll be here. You're coming back. I'm gonna hold you to it, buddy.
Yeah. That'd be great.
We're very excited. Yeah.
Yes, I think you're gonna like it. It's gonna be a good conversation. Yeah. So, well, I think that's it now, folks. So go forth
and strike down the darkness.
And we'll see you next week. Right?